Okay, so I want to make a video about how I make money shoveling residential driveways in the wintertime. Shoveling snow off of residential driveways in the wintertime. Um, how I make money doing snow removal without a snowplow. So I see a lot of these videos on YouTube talking about how to start a snow removal business. But I have noticed that a lot of these guys are using plows and trucks, and they're doing big parking lots, big commercial spaces, plazas, and the likes. Um, that's not how I operate my business. And I don't see too many guys on YouTube that cover this, so I'd like to go ahead and kind of show you guys how I make money in the wintertime shoveling residential driveways um, without a snowplow. So first of all, what do I use if I'm not using a snowplow? I use a snow thrower. I use Toro a Toro Power Clear. If you want to go look that up, that's what I use, a Toro Power Clear. It's a very light snow thrower. The reason I use this snow thrower is that I can lift it on and off my truck all day long, no problems. It's not super heavy. It's very maneuverable, easy to whip around. Um, it's a good piece of equipment. When I first started off, I bought a really large, clunky snow blower that was expensive and really hard to move around, and I never ended up even using it. So I learned the hard way that the smaller, lighter machines are what you're gonna want to use if you're gonna be doing lots of driveways in one night. So that's the first thing. I don't use a snow plow like a lot of these guys. I don't do big parking lots. I do people's driveways with a snow thrower. It's $1,000 snow thrower. That's what I paid for it up here in Canada, um, and that's what I use. I use that and a shovel, and I have a 4x4 pickup truck that I use. But you don't necessarily need that, although I would highly recommend a pickup truck and and even a 4x4 pickup truck if you can make it happen. That's going to be the best setup for you to do what I do. So yeah, what are we going to next? Okay, so the next question I want to cover here is when do I go out? So again, one of the early mistakes I made in this business is I would go out at nighttime, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's when a lot of these snowplow guys are out doing parking lots and stuff. So that's kind of when I went out as well. However, I do driveways. I do residential neighborhoods. I have people sleeping right next to where I'm working with a big loud machine. So although I did do this for many years, I would go out late at night. One year, I actually had two neighbors come out and complain to me, yelling at me at 3 o'clock in the morning in their robe, and I decided after that year that I wasn't gonna go out and do driveways late at night anymore. So I stopped doing that completely. So what I do now is, if we have snow today, I come out tomorrow morning, and that's what I tell people. I tell them I'll be there tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow afternoon or evening, depending on how much snow we have. Um, Another thing I tell my customers is that we do not do emergency calls. We don't come by the call, so you can't just call us up and say, "Hey, I have a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock. Can you please come down here and get me out of my driveway?" When there's a foot and a half of snow throughout the city, and I have 20 driveways before you. So I don't do that, and I tell them that right off the bat. That's one of the main things that I really tell leads when they're trying to sign up with my services. I tell them, "Hey, look, I do not come out for emergency calls. So if you have a doctor's appointment in the morning, you're gonna have to make other plans because I'm not gonna drop what I'm doing to come service you." The reason for that is that I have a route. Um, I have about 30 driveways that I do. I have a very specific way that I do them, and I'm not running around just person to person by the call. So this brings me to my next point is that I uh, I charge a flat rate for the season. A lot of guys will go out there and they'll charge by the snowfall, and that's cool. You can make a lot of money doing that, um, or you can make not a lot of money doing that, right? So the thing about this business is it's so dependent on the weather.
So if you get a lot of snow that winter, you're gonna make a lot of money. If you don't get very much snow that winter, you're not gonna have very much money. Mind you, you won't be working very much, but you're not gonna make a whole lot either. Um, so for me, I don't like that. I don't like that way of doing business. So the way I operate and the way I've operated for my whole business is that I charge them for the season. I charge them right now. Most of my customers are about $800 for the season. I'm trying to bump that up to 900, 1,000, as we move on and pick up more customers. As I move on and pick up more customers, that is. And the reason that I like the flat rate is that just for that reason, if all of a sudden the winter comes along and there's not very much work, instead of being out, you actually are up. So the less work there is, the more money you make. Of course, it can go the other way. You can have a really brutal winter, and you're out there every day busting your butt, and you're not making as much now. So actually, the more you work, the less you make. Um, the reason I like this flat rate way is that I'd rather I'd rather have that scenario where there's a lot of work, so I'm not getting paid quite as much as I would have been if I'd been charging per thing, per time. Um, I'd rather have that scenario than the scenario of the winter time it didn't snow very much and you didn't make very much money at all. I don't like that, because I find that even if we do have a very intense winter, I'm not gonna go broke because of it. Like I will make less than if we have an easy winter, but I'm not gonna go broke because of it. If we have a winter and all winter time there's not really any big storms, that's the other thing, is that when you go buy the call, people are gonna call you only for big storms, right? So my battery's gonna die. Okay, so just to reiterate my point about flat rates, the reason that I like to charge a flat rate over a per snowfall rate is that the outdoor industry, the green industry, is very unpredictable because of rain, because of weather. For example, right now I should be cutting grass, but instead I'm making this video at a park because it's raining. I can't work in the rain. What this means in the wintertime is that it's a gamble. This business is a gamble. One way or the other, it's a gamble. If you charge per snowfall, it's a gamble, and if you charge a flat rate, it's a gamble. The reason for this is because sometimes winter, we have lots of snowstorms and it's snowing multiple times a week and you're out there constantly working. Other winters, you go a whole month and you only go out a couple times maybe, right? So it's unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get with winter time, around here anyways. So I find that if you are charging per snowfall, it's a bigger gamble because you could lose a lot of money if the winter comes and there's not a lot of snow and you don't have to work. You're not going to make any money. On the inverse side of that, if the winter is crazy and it's snowing every other day and you're out there just shoveling snow constantly and breaking your back, you're gonna be making some money from that. You're gonna be caking, you know. You're gonna see the reward of that gamble. It's gonna be a jackpot, right? If you do it how I do it and you do a flat rate for the season, it's still a gamble. It's still a gamble. However, I find that it's not as big of a gamble because if the winter is mild and there's not a lot of snow and I don't have to work very much, I'm still going to be making the same amount of money. The gamble is that if it's a very intense winter and we're getting snow every other day, I'm not going to make as much as I potentially could have had I been charging per snowfall. And actually, not only that, but I'm actually making less money if it's busy. So if it's busy, I'm making the same amount of money, but my expenses go up. Just, fuel expenses, whatever, labor expenses if you have it. Your expenses go up. So you're actually making less money if you have a very intense winter and the more you're working, the less you're making, basically, doing it the flat rate way. However, I find that I'd rather have that scenario than the scenario of there was no snow and I was charging per time and there was no snow, and now I'm not making any money at all. So it's not as big of a gamble. The gamble is you're saying, maybe we'll have a really bad winter and I'll be working a lot. Bad winter as in we have a lot of snow, and I'll be working a lot and I won't be making as much as I would have had I been charging per time, right? I'd rather have that scenario. That is, to me, is preferable. So you can win, and to win big, you don't win as big, but you also don't lose as big, and that's the reason that I like the flat rate way of doing this business. I hope that makes sense. So on to the next point that I'd like to make. So earlier I said that I do about 30 driveways, and I just want to tell you why I came up with that number 30. So by myself, I do about 30 driveways in a night, and the reason I like to do 30 is that if we have a small snowfall and I'm whipping through the customer's properties quickly, it takes me about 4-5 hours to do 30 properties. This is just for your own reference. I'm not telling you what you should do or what. I'm just telling you what I do, and maybe you can, just as a reference point, right? So I do about 30 properties on a mild, small snowfall. It takes me about 4 to 5 hours to do that. Sometimes even less. But I'd say around 4 hours on average on a regular, easy snowfall. This is where it gets tricky, though. It takes a lot longer to shovel a foot of snow or half a foot of snow than it does to do an inch of snow, right? When doing 30 properties and then getting hit with a foot of snow, it takes me closer to about 8 hours, basically double the time, and can even take longer than that. I've worked up to 10 hours doing 30 driveways. So that's why I do 30. You might go out there and you do 30 driveways and you realize that it's hella easy. You only worked for 4 hours and you're like, yo, I could do way more than this. And then you go and get yourself 60 customers and you realize that now you have to work 16 hours when it snows, like for real. And I'm not about that. And maybe you are, and I know there are people out there that do that, will do 16-hour days. It's not my cup of tea. And that's the reason I like to stick at about 30 customers for the season. I don't like to go over that because I don't want to work 10-hour, 11-hour, 12-hour days. I just don't. But you can. I've designed my snow business the way I like it, So I'm just trying to tell you guys how I do things so you can understand, what options you have, what ways you can go around doing things, what options you have, and just kind of give you some perspective and give you a reference point. So for me, anyways, I do about 30 properties, and that can take me anywhere from 4 to about 10 hours to do. And that's the reason that I cap it out at 30. I don't want to do any more than that. So I do about 30 customers. I charge them around $800 per customer. That's including taxes. That's just the way I do it. How did I come up with these numbers? Well, I picked up I just figured it out as I went. I went out there and I used to charge a lot less, and I realized that wasn't sustainable. I bumped it up, and just where I am right now, I charge about $800 per customer. Do about 30 customers altogether through the winter, 25 to 30, somewhere in that range. You can do the math from there and kind of see what you're looking at. Wintertime where I live is basically December, January, February, and into March. That's usually what wintertime is. So 3.5, maybe 4 months of winter up here in southern Ontario in Canada. Again, this is, it changes everywhere you go from spot to spot, but I'm just trying to give you guys a reference point to see, where you're at. I usually go out anywhere from 0 times a week to, maybe 4 or 5 times in a week. It just depends on what you're dealing with. I like to go out even after we have wind drifts here. That's when the wind, it didn't actually snow, but it was so windy that the person's driveway is covered. I'll go out after that and clean that up. When the city trucks come by and they shoot snow all over all over people's driveway after a big storm has come, I'll come back out the next day to clean that up. So I'll go out there. This is basically how it happens. I go out there the next day, I clean their driveways. The city plows haven't yet gone by. They'll come by after I've already done the driveway, and they'll close off the driveway with all their crap. If you know, you know what I'm talking about. Let's just put it that way. If you're from a place where it snows, these city plows will come and shoot snow all over the driveway. So I'll come out again the day after that, and I'll clean up what the snow plows have left behind. I go out for about an inch of snow or more. I don't do salt. I don't do any salt or ice melt or anything like that. My policy, I guess you could say, is that I tell the customer if they do want salt put out, then leave a bag of salt on their stoop or their front step, and I will go ahead and lay it out. If I see their salt on their front steps, I'll lay it out for them, but I don't actually put down any salt of my own. I don't really face any kickback from customers about that. They're understanding. A lot of people don't even like salt because it gets all over your shoes and your clothes, and it's bad for the environment and whatever. So I don't do any salt, and I have no kickback from customers. I just make sure I tell them all at the beginning, I tell them all this stuff. I tell them I don't do salt. I tell them I don't do emergency calls. I tell them I show up when I show up, I lay these rules out. I tell them it's a flat rate for the season. I just tell them all at the beginning, and if they say yes, they say yes, and I put them on the route, and then there we go. So, I don't know if I have anything to add to this. If I do, I will. If not, well, let's see here. So what are the pros to being in the snow removal business? What are the perks? What is it like? So the main thing I would say, the main benefit of being in the snow removal business is that it doesn't actually take up that much time. Where I live, again, this is all relative to where you live, and how bad your winters are, but here, Southern Ontario in Canada, where it snows, like I said, roughly 3 to 4 months of the year, a couple times a week maybe, this is what I do. So, scale it back to whatever you have to, or scale it up, or whatever compared to where you live. I know everywhere is different, so I just want to give you guys a reference point with this video. But the biggest perk to this business is that you get a lot of free time, even on a busy winter, even when it's crazy. Like if you work 4 or 5 days in this business in a week, that's considered like a busy week. You know what I mean? I have weeks where I don't do anything. How often in the winter do you go a week with no snow? It happens all the time. It's not unusual. So I'll have weeks off at a time in the winter time. So that's a huge benefit to this business. It gives you time to enjoy. You can almost use it like vacation time, or you can use that time to even do other businesses and stuff. That's why I love this business. Is that in the wintertime I dabble around with other things. You know what I mean? I try to make money in other ways, and start different businesses, or work on the internal side of my lawn care business. The snow business is great like that. Like I said, it's pretty lucrative too. I mean, if you do the math there, if you're doing $800 a pop, you're doing about 30 customers on your route. That's like 24 grand for 3 or 4 months of work, right? So that's pretty good, and it's a lot of free time. It's not like you even really have to work 40 hours a week or anything like that. So you don't work that much. I mean, you work hard. When you work hard. When there's a lot of snow, you work hard and you earn your money. But the actual time that you have to commit to this business is not that much. I mean, the winter is like an off season for me. A lot of the season, I'm just kicking back, chilling. Like I said, if I have to go out 2 or 3 times in a week and they're just small snowfalls, I might only work 10 or 12 hours that whole week. If none at all, and I still get paid for it by doing the flat style of payments. So the time is definitely, I would say, the biggest perk to this business. The money is good too. Like I said, 24 grand for 3-4 months of work. That's pretty good. I think that's pretty good anyway. What else can I tell you? It's a if you're just thinking about getting into this business yourself, it's a great business because it's a very low barrier to entry business, which means that it's very easy to get into. You don't need a license, you don't need anything like that. Not where I'm at anyway. And it's not a very big investment. I mean, all you need is a vehicle. I've done this business with a car before, with a 4-cylinder Nissan Altima. I did this business. It wasn't pretty. I got stuck on some roads, and I've had to push myself out and dig myself out, and I definitely would not recommend it. Definitely would recommend getting a truck, but I can tell you it's possible if you got the hustle. So all you need is a vehicle. I would say preferably a truck. You don't need any plow. You don't need anything like that. Really, you don't even need a snowblower. If you're just doing if you only have a couple customers and you're just doing it after work or something like that, you could get by with a shovel. You know what I mean? So there's barely any barrier to entry in this business. You can get in very easily. No education, no license, and you don't even really need that much cash to get in. I started my business with a $2,500 truck and a shovel. I started this business for less than $3 grand. I started this business for less than $3 grand, so you can get into it very cheap. It doesn't require too much of a time commitment. I will say that you do need to be kind of on the clock. That's one of the downsides to this business. You might end up working on Christmas Day. You might be working on New Year's Day. And, people say, I would never work on those days. You're going to want to. You're going to want to, because if you have a snowstorm on Christmas or whatever, and you have to put it off for an extra day, it makes everything harder. It doesn't make things any easier. The snow sometimes becomes harder to handle and shovel. It doesn't become light and fluffy. It might melt or get hard or what have you. So it's never easier the longer you leave it. It's easier to do it right after it snows. So you might have to work on days that you don't want to work. You might have to work on the weekend. You might be that's part of the business. You might be working on New Year's. You might be working on Christmas, and there's not much you can do about it. Like I said, this business is a gamble. You never really know what you're gonna get. So you might work Saturday and Sunday and miss out on your weekend with your girlfriend or whatever, right? So it is what it is. Like I said, it's a hard business when it's a hard business. When there's a lot of snow, you're going to be out there and you're going to be working hard and earning it. But no, it's a pretty good business. It's definitely a decent business, I would say. For me, it's good. It gets me through the winter. I have a seasonal business in the summer. I take care of grass. I mow grass, and then this is what I do in the off season. So it's a way for me to make another 20 grand or whatever you have, and keep me afloat and keeping my customers happy. And yeah. Alright, so the very last thing I want to cover here is how did you get 30 customers, right? So for me, it was very simple. All I did was hand out flyers. I had some very, very basic flyers made up. Just a piece of paper, not glossy or nothing. They were you could have printed them out on your home printer, which was just a regular printer. They were just basic, super basic flyers. I had my friend design them for me. We I came up with a little design, and we made some really basic flyers, and I went down to my local print shop and I had them print me out a whole bunch, and I just handed them out my neighborhood and throughout the city. I just handed out as many as I possibly could. I had customers call me up. I would give them estimates, and that's how and I would say the main thing that I did was stick-to-itiveness, because the first winter that I worked, I didn't do 30 customers, because I went through the school of hard knocks with all this stuff here. That's why I'm relaying this message to you guys, because if you're just out there just getting started, there's a lot of mistakes that you can make that you could avoid making, and that's why people come to YouTube and stuff. That's why I go to YouTube, and so that's why I'm just out here trying to spread my knowledge here. But yeah, I just handed out flyers. I just handed out flyers door to door in my neighborhood, and I had stick-to-itiveness, and I did it year after year, winter after winter, and it took me a while. It took me a while to get that many customers, but I was starting from nothing and very little knowledge of how to do things, and so it took me a while. But I'd say if I was starting over today, I could probably get them a lot easier. But I would say what I would say is make a website, make a flyer, hand out the flyers, connect the flyer to the website, use your website to sell your business, throw like a frequently asked questions on there, and yeah, just hand out flyers and get on Facebook and just do all the marketing stuff. Maybe I'll make another video about that. But the way I started was just basic flyers with my phone number on it, and that was it. I was off to the races. So stick-to-itiveness, print out some flyers, get the most basic ones. Around where I am, snow removal service is actually pretty easy to sell. People do not like shoveling their own snow, so it's not that hard of a sale. You're gonna have to go out there and learn the lessons, but it is what it is. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, I think that's it for this video. How to start a residential driveway shoveling business without a plow. My next video is going to be about how to make money cleaning up leaves. So that's what's up. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.